Welcome to a special episode of Comic Book Wars. Today we are joined with a dear friend and a new friend who I met at Baltimore Comic Con. Mikey, would you please introduce yourself?
What's up, everybody? Mike, aka I Got This on IG. Just here saying what's up, hanging out with Nico. Talk about some comic books and the Comic Book Fiend Club, of course. As always, thanks for having me on, bud.
It's an honor and a privilege. I have to admit, I am naive and uninformed when it comes to the Comic Book Fiend Club. I met one guy who I introduced myself to once before. I think I scared him, but when I mentioned that you were going to be on the podcast, he was like, "Oh, well, maybe he's not a weirdo." At a show in the Ohio area. But I see you guys everywhere, particularly on Instagram. I mean, the following that you've put together is nothing short of massive. Do you think you could, just kind of introduce the listeners to what the Comic Book Fiend Club is in a real general sense before we kind of dive into what you guys are doing specifically and your involvement and so forth?
Yeah, basically, Comic Book Fiend Club is just a social club, a group of like-minded individuals who really what it comes down to is love comic books and love collecting comic books and love going to cons and doing everything that is involved in the community. It's really what it boils down to. It's just it was started by our two our founders, Merc with a Beard and the Bataholic. One's on the West Coast, one's on the East Coast, and you basically had.
Did I meet the one guy today? Is he from Ohio?
Yeah, you met Sean. He is
not the founder.
He's not the founder, but he's been in.
It would have been cooler if I would have met the founder.
Well, he's in West Virginia.
Don't tell Sean. Is he?
Well, I think,
I'm in West Virginia.
Yeah, so the Bataholic, you should hit him up. There's a couple of, I mean, that's the thing about it is we're all over the place. You said it yourself. We're all over the entire world. We're in Australia. We're all over Europe. It's been growing and it's been really great. But yeah, the Steve and Aaron from the West Coast, they were total opposites. And they built this really strong relationship based off of comic books, and they came up with this idea, and that was 2015, and here we are now, over 120 members strong. So
now,
yeah,
is it suggested or preferred to wear the vests at conventions to kind of tell who's who?
I mean, it's
how do you get one? Is basically what I'm asking. And do you think I would look okay in a vest? I feel like they'd be like, is he a male stripper? Why is that child with the beard wearing a vest?
I think
who cut the tails off the back?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
I just don't know that I would look appropriate. I don't think I could. I mean, some people can rock like face tats. I can barely rock a sweater.
Yeah.
Some people have style. I
don't. It's not about the style, man. It's about the culture, I think, right?
There we go.
It's so like
here.
Yeah, for me, it's people can throw out like whatever they want to say about like vests or wearing cuts or whatever it is. Like we're not like hardcore gang or anything.
You're
like
not
that.
a 1% motorcycle gang.
No, we are not. No.
All right, I promised you my 1% motorcycle gang story.
Oh, go ahead, let's hear it.
All right, when I was in for the 4 fucking listeners that don't know that I'm an attorney. In my other life, when I was in law school, I represented someone who was alleged to be affiliated with a 1% motorcycle gang. For those of you who are not familiar with what that means, outlaw motorcycle gangs, you should Google that shit. Okay,
yeah, that's some serious shit.
They make the TV shows look mundane. So what the fuck did I know, right? I knew nothing about. I mean, I'm young and quite naive. Suffice to say, Suffice to say, in a
So you were
hearing, I
representing that
met
dude.
there's a person who was allegedly affiliated, and I may have, and by that I mean I clearly told the judge that my client's alleged affiliation with a recreational motorcycle club is not an issue that the court should take into consideration. There's been no real evidence that this recreational motorcycle club, if my client is so affiliated with them, is some sort of criminal enterprise. Well, suffice to say, I was I won the hearing, right?
Did you? I was gonna say,
And
did you actually win?
I absolutely fucking won. And then I was promptly called into the dean's office at the law school, where they just looked at me with shame, like, what's wrong with you?
That's
And
funny.
then the next level up, right? The next judge up had me reappear with my client in less than 24 hours. And, I think I'm all fucking smart. And he's just looking at me like, and eventually he just goes, "Are you finished?" I was like, "Well, I guess." And he promptly overturned me. And anyway,
So I
that
can
was
imagine you'd
my
be in those guys' better graces if you actually got him off. But oh well.
Well, there was 24 hours there where I was I was mildly important. Then there was another thing, and I suffice to say, I stopped representing them shortly thereafter before I could move the case along. But that was my
Smart move.
short, very brief kind of like take on, and I can tell you with 100% certainty that the Comic Book Fiend Club is not an outlaw motorcycle gang,
No, we are
but
not an
one hell
outlaw
of a group of
motorcycle
guys.
gang.
And I assume a couple ladies too.
Yeah, good, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
All the
you have,
gender
I assume,
pronouns.
right? Got all of them? What
Yeah,
do
we
you
got all.
think?
We
There's
cover all of them.
3,000 members on Instagram. Is that right?
No,
10,000? How
no,
many? What's the
members.
number at?
No,
How
we're only
many? What,
we're
you've
120,
got how many
120.
followers? How many
Oh,
followers do you have on Instagram?
we just hit 10K recently, which is huge.
Jesus
Yeah,
Lord.
yeah.
Yeah, there's you
So
and
we're
Gary
we.
Vanderchuck that have 10,000 followers on Instagram. That's huge.
There's
I
a
mean,
few
I
other
think you
out there,
guys
I
are.
think, but
I'm just saying, like as far as comic book
comic books
groups
go.
go,
Yeah,
yeah. Are you
yeah.
guys number one?
I'd like to say so. I think that we were the first and the original, right?
It's beautiful. Don't matter if you like it, just take it and sit down and write it. Comic Book Fiend Club number one with a bullet.
I'll say that we are we're accepting of all people and everything. We're cool. We don't want to be the best, or we're not looking to. It doesn't matter about having the best collection or who's got the best books, the biggest books, the most books, all that kind of shit. I mean, there's people in this club that have only been collecting for like 2-3 years, like
which
at
is what
all.
I think I love most about what you guys do. It is the least pretentious group of comic book collectors I think around. I mean, it is really a celebration and love of the industry, the art form, the medium,
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't, sort of like commodify it and make it about like this is worth this amount and this is going to be worth this amount. But
Yeah.
instead, really just kind of like celebrates what we all initially loved when we got involved with the hobby.
Right, absolutely. I think talking about the club as a whole, those are definitely our, what we fall back. What it comes down to when it's distilled. That's really what we're about. We're about inclusion. We're about the comic books. Obviously, across the club, though, you have all different types of people. You can go stand at Baltimore, and there's people from the club that are dropping $1,000 in a swap. They're just dropping money, and they're just and some of them are
Oh, I
in
saw that
dollar.
happen.
Yeah, I bet you did. I got proof of it right here next to me. But there's also some people that just dig in dollar bins all day long, and some people are just there to get every autograph or sketch. You know, there's this one dude that's in our club. He's an OG, and he just wants to get Batman sketched by every single DC artist
Wow.
that's ever. And I mean, the guy's got the craziest collection of original art and stuff like that. And you know, he doesn't. You know, he's all about original art and sketch pieces, and that's his big thing. You know, so it doesn't
It's
matter.
beautiful.
Yeah, we're not pretentious. We don't give a fuck. Like, it doesn't matter
How did you
if you
get
have the big
involved with
book.
the Comic Book Fiend Club?
I mean, Instagram mostly. You know, it's the Instagram is our strongest medium, or platform, I should say. It's where we have the most relevance. Obviously, you can, as you said, the 10K. So I was on there. Just I had been collecting comic books forever, but I didn't really realize there was this whole group of people on Instagram that were like talking about comic books all the time. I used to just post pictures of like my kids or my dog or something like that. And then so I found that, and then through finding the community, I started reaching out and seeing like the same logo over and over again, and started talking to all these people, and then realized, oh, like there's this whole club, and I'm like friends with half of them already, or not half, but you know, a good amount. And so I enrolled, and I was voted in by the East chapter.
Nice. All
Yeah,
right. It's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. It's awesome. It's good.
When did you start collecting?
Like, so I mean, like everybody else, well, like a lot of people, standard New England white male comic book collector. I started, you know, I'm 34. I started watching, you know, like X-Men and all that stuff. And my brother always had X-Men comic books lying around, and I would pick them up and flip through them and read them from time to time. And then that was in like middle school, and then close to like, you know, I started picking it back up in college again. I kind of totally dropped it for high school, picked it up back in college, started reading and stuff like that. And then I was bouncing around so much that any of the books that I did have, I kind of just unloaded. And once digital came around, I was working and moving around so much that I was just reading a lot. I was consuming so much digitally. Once Comixology came on and all that shit. So I've been reading and collecting comic books for fucking as long as I can remember. But I really dug in my heels into like honing my collecting and really getting specific with what I really want to invest in. Probably about 5 years ago, I really got hard into that. That started with a whole bunch of Moon Knight and DC Silver Age books, which most
Wow.
of I don't have anymore because I flipped them for other books. So
All right. Very cool. When did you start selling comics? Because that's a transition, right? I
that's the
still
difference.
meet people who like they buy fucking big books and shit, and they'll be like, "I'm a pure collector," and I'm
Yeah,
like, I mean,
it's tough.
I don't
It's
know.
tough.
Like, you know, different people have different styles. It makes no fucking sense to me. But like, you know, people are free to do what they want with the items they have. They can burn all their fucking comics if they want.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I don't. Well, I
Like,
don't
I
like
don't know. Like, it's their thing.
that.
There was a time in my life where I would be like, have you ever thought about, you know, but I don't even do that
Yeah.
shit anymore. I'm just like, oh, all right.
I think it was the time where when I needed to, when I looked at it and I said, okay, I could spend an enormous gross amount of cash on the book that I want and save up for it, or I can unload 2 or 3 books that I haven't looked at, that have been down in my cellar in a CGC box, just sitting there. I can unload those and make some cash to pick up books. And recently, I've even actually kind of I've really started unloading. I unloaded pretty much a large majority of all my Silver Age Marvel stuff, and a good chunk of books, just to focus on what I'm really interested in right now, which would be horror and sci-fi books. So Yeah, it took a
which
while
is
for me
how
to do
you and
that.
I promptly became
We
friends. When I
did. Yeah,
realized
man.
that you loved the same kind of books that I loved, I was like, oh,
Absolutely.
well, you're stuck with me now. I'll just fucking stalk you, see what you buy on the internet.
Which is good,
Yeah.
man. That's good. That's the fun thing, man. You know,
Well,
it's
I want to talk about this trajectory that happens because I think it happens, I think with most serious collectors, right? And I
yeah.
fear that someday I'm going to be fucking overpaying for like Matt Baker romance books, looking for Cinderella, fucking golden age. I
Yeah.
don't know. Is that where we all die, or is it pulps? I'm not sure, but talk to
Hopes
me
are
about
on the
how this
rise.
happens. They sure as fuck are. I was looking at some today. I didn't pull the trigger, but anyway,
It's tough. It's a whole nother medium that you just start
yeah,
fucking
that
with,
I don't
and
know
then
anything
like,
about it.
and
Right,
you
I've
don't,
got
and
some.
and it's very different too. Yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about the
Um,
trajectory. Like, how did this happen? So you get in, and you're buying, and I want to talk about like when I would say you were at least a reasonably sophisticated collector. Once you like appreciated.
right,
Take care of your fucking comics, put them in bags and boards. There
right.
are such things as key issues. You're doing
Yeah,
more than
yeah,
just like reading trade paperbacks and reading random comics. How did
right.
that sort of trajectory go for you? What is the story of how that happened?
For me, it was pretty rapid. So I I got really heavy into grading books and CGC. And I that started at going to cons, getting like witness sigs and stuff like that. And then I realized that like I go to this con and um, this book that I paid $10 for, and $10 for a signature, and $40 to get slabbed up is now $300 book because I stood on the lines, I got it signed, and that's when I started thinking about all right,
So
do I want to
value added collectibles, right? Like that was the
yes,
initial
so that was that
introduction.
right, and so that was like where I started to realize it. And and I'm like, well, I go to cons all the time. I'm gonna get every sig I can. I'm gonna get every Venom or Carnage books ever signed by Bagley, and then they're all going to be, all that kind of shit. And then I would
If you've been
slowly,
in the hobby for a decade or so, you remember that in about 2009, CGC Signature Series Gold Label was all the fucking
it
rage,
was
right?
huge.
Like
Yeah, right.
it's a
Yeah. So,
different market than it is now.
right. So
Those books, they
huge,
literally
just
sold for more
crazy.
money,
Yeah.
profoundly more money in some cases, than a blue label book, which is no longer the case. I
It is
mean,
not. No.
they're
And
like,
it's,
they're like the
well,
redheaded
I think,
stepchild, which is
well,
interesting, but
I think for me it was like, it's like, oh fuck, grab any book that you can and get it signed and slabbed up, and hopefully it comes back, a high grade, especially if it's a modern book. But like I find myself grabbing just like like any like books, like, oh, this he's an artist, he worked on this is a cool cover. And I was doing that, and then I had all these slabbed books and everything, and I was like, I don't really care about most of these books. So for me it was like I got into the CGC thing, and um around, so this was a little bit later, you said like a little bit later than that, that I was doing this. And
and
then
you were always doing the signature series yourself, like preparing the books with windows and getting them signed, meeting
yeah,
the artists. You
yeah.
weren't using a facilitator.
No,
You were
I
just
mean,
doing it
I've used
at cons.
facilitators at cons, not willingly by any means. I it's extra cost, and nothing against facilitators or anything like that.
No, but
They
it used to be a big deal, right? Like there
yeah,
people made it was like a cottage industry in the
right.
hobby.
Yeah, no,
And
it
those
was
days
huge
are fucking over.
to be a CGC licensed authorized dealer. I mean, that shit's like being a Verizon dealer. Like you have the goods, you know what I mean? But now it doesn't I mean, you don't need to be. Like you get a free membership and you wait online, and you can get all the books in the world graded. I mean, it's pretty simple. Um when I first
So
started it,
all right, so you're doing the signature series stuff. What happens
yeah.
next?
What happens next is I um I start to see. I think so. So I'm doing this for a while, and I'm amassing books, and I'm buying books, and I'm buying as much as I can. I think the real thing that piqued my interest I started to see this new thing that was, I was interested in Golden Age, but to me, Golden Age was just like, Timely Comics and Marvel comics and shit like that, like Golden Age and like, Detective Comics and shit like that. And then I started realizing, oh, there's this whole fucking world of science fiction, and there's all these amazing artists that have been working on these books that like in the 50s they're already at like issue 100, and that introduced me into the whole land of pre-code horror. And now like I saw those books at the cons and stuff like that, and I just kind of never really appreciated them the way I do now. So once I started kind of finding out about that, this is around the same time. This is recently, around the same time, 4 or 5 years ago, that all the Hulk 181 started blowing up again. That was like 3 years ago, I guess, whatever it was. And I happen to have 2 of those in my collection, slabbed up. And I was like, well, this is a good point for me to step my game up into the next level of collecting. And I sold off 2 Hulk 181s, and bought some of my first pre-code horror books and Golden Age books. And that's once I got those books and looked at the art and started reading more about all these different artists like L.B. Cole and Johnny Craig and just Lee Ellis and all those dudes, I was hooked. It was over. I was done. And I was like, this is what I want to do from now on with comic books. And I mean, it sounds quick, but like that was like a 7-year period of me doing that before I'm like where I'm at now. And I'm like pretty much more or less selling off anything that doesn't fit into this small window of golden, silver age, and a little bit of Bronze Age horror, and sci-fi as well. So it's crazy. It's been weird, but like I was at Baltimore and got a bunch of books graded on site. I got a Batman Adventures 12,
which is where we met, right? We met,
we met
waiting for our CGC books. I caused them a minor commotion because they fucking lost my books. And then I went downstairs and I was like, they say they're there, but they can't find them. Will you make them find them?
Yeah, they weren't drive home. They weren't updating anything. That was the problem. They weren't updating any of the the info, so you had to just keep going up there. But I would, and then I was just like grabbing those books, dropping them off, getting them graded, picking them back up, and going right downstairs to the floor and saying, "Here you go. He's off my hands. Here's the GPA. I'll take GPA for him. Take him away, and give me cash, and then I'll go down and find some Golden Age books that I want." So I've quickly.
You brought some books?
I brought some books. Yeah, I got some books.
I'm excited. Jimmy doesn't let me show books on our regular podcast, so when I get to do this by myself, my favorite thing in the world is to be like, let me see some comics. I'm like basically one of the children that likes to watch the YouTube videos where other people open up presents.
Yeah. Or they watch other people. I got 2 little boys.
Play with toys.
They watch kids play with toys. It's fucking crazy to me. It's crazy. But
I identify with your children. Let's see what you got.
All right. So I figured I wanted to just feature some of my favorite books and some of the stuff that I'm like getting into now that I'm really starting to appreciate. So
now,
obviously,
what Jimmy yells at me for is I apparently talk to people who think like I do, but I don't sort of talk about things in a way that he suggests is accessible to newer collectors, and he thinks that that's why nobody watches the fucking podcast. That it's just a sounding board for other assholes that make content, and then they're like, "Oh, did you hear what Dickhead said? You should explain that so normal people understand." And so try not to be like George.
I might talk like that, but I will try not to be like George. So
I appreciate that.
Speaking of that, the first book I brought up, I figured this is one of my more recent pre-code pickups. So I think you recognize that book, right?
I do. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah. So you want to talk to him about the stamp?
Yeah. So
It's the best part about the book, and I think that you and I appreciate that in a very
Absolutely.
particular way.
Yeah. So for me, I think so this is a Tomb of Terror 16, Lee Ellis cover. This is one of my favorite covers. I just love the fact that the zombie's face is under the water, just because zombies
Mine
can't drown,
too.
and it's just such a great fucking. It's just such a great aesthetic, and there's tons of skulls and everything in it. So the stamps, I love the stamps on any of these books. So right there, this is and the cool thing about it is it, a lot of times what I like about the stamps is when they match up with the dates of the books that were actually published. I think that's just something super cool. And you kind of just, like this book was dropped off in a bundle at some newsstand in the 50s, and some guy smoking a cigar cut them open and stamped them all. I don't know. It's just so
Yeah,
fucking cool to me. But like
absolutely.
you can trace like so this is from Bennett's, right? Is the name of the place, I believe, and it's an old school Ohio magazine comic book shop from like
And I
back
looked for
in.
it, but I could never figure out where it
Can't
was.
find it, right? So it's got to be back in the day, because the cool thing about this stamp is, it says back issues and magazines, and it's from Dayton, Ohio. So, like, to me, I know that this wasn't the first owner who put this stamp on it, but like, it's just crazy to me to think that like this book ended up in a back issue bin somewhere. Like this coveted book that like classic artwork, classic cover, um, you know, and somebody didn't buy it off the stands, and then ended up in a back uh, back issue bin somewhere in Ohio in the 50s. And I just love that. I love the stamp thing. It's really cool. Um, I definitely prefer it when it doesn't fuck up
Right.
the art. So when it's
I
across
hate it
the,
when they do that. It
yeah,
drives me
so when it's
mad.
across the trade dress or something like that, that doesn't bother me at all. Yeah, super stoked. I'm glad to have that book. Now I just got to get 15 classic melting face cover. That one's a little bit more expensive. So, um, so for those of you watching, we're talking about pre-code horror, PCH that we say, right? So that's anything pretty much before 1955, and it's before the comic code was created.
Do you want to explain a little bit about that, how that happened, for those who aren't
So,
hip to that?
so perfect segue onto my next book. One of my favorite personal and first pre-code books I ever picked up is this bad boy right here. This camera's fucking me up
Oh,
going backwards. So, um, classic hanging cover, Johnny Craig. This is one of the first ones that I picked up, and it's Crime Suspense Stories 20. So in the top right hand corner on the CGC label, it's noted that this was used in Soti. So for those of you who don't know, Soti, or Seduction of the Innocent, was a book that was written back in the 50s. Basically, pretty much it was used then by Congress to say that these books are bad news, and kids and young adults shouldn't be reading these books because of the graphic images or the sexual situations. So they used this book called Seduction of the Innocent, where they featured all these mostly EC comics, and went through this whole different thing, and went through a Congress, this whole thing with Congress. And eventually what they came up with was the comic code. And after that, I think it was 55 that the comic code came into play. All books had to be censored, and it started a whole new era of comic books, where you really started seeing a little bit more of the goofy aspect, and kind of a little bit more ridiculousness in the books. So yeah, so pre-code horror is that's what it's referencing to. It's referencing to that little box in the corner of your comic book that says approved. Well, not anymore, but it used to. So yeah. What else? Should we keep going?
please.
I got a few. So I just wanted to cover the spectrum of what I like. So I did that. I'm going to throw this up real quick. This is just one of my all-time favorite books. This was also a Baltimore pickup. So this is a Blue Bolt.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this is a 119. This is classic LB Cole, and
Can you bring that a little closer?
Yeah. So
That's
it's a 4.
gorgeous.
Yeah, the colors and the art in this is just absolutely fucking astounding. I also love page quality. This is off-white pages, so that's some really good quality for this. And again, this is the last issue in the series of Blue Bolt Weird Tales when LB Cole took over. So he was doing covers only, and he's a master of colors, a master of all things horror and demons. And I'm just super stoked to have this book.
It's
one of my favorite artists.
Absolutely. Who's, for the record, taken off in the last, 18 months? Ish?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just been this profound pop. You know, we talk about, like, pops with modern books. Like, this book spiked, and it's on the fucking so-and-so top 10 list. And it's like, you compare that shit to, like, what's happened with all LB Cole books over it's mundane, you know, for a $5 book. You know, $26. Who gives a fuck? You see these like books that are going from like $200 to like $1,200 over the course of 18 months. I mean, just a profound increase. PCH market has been fire hot.
Absolutely. Some
with
of the
LB Cole leading the charge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think. I mean, you'll always have the Stromberg stuff. That'll always be one of the leaders, but. You know, LB Cole he's just different. You know, he did everything too. Like, it's not just horror. Like, you find all the sci-fi books, you find all the good girl art, and then you also find like the kind of like wonky jungle. It's not jungle action. I forget the name of the books, but you know, all the like some Tarzan looking dude fighting a tiger. But you know, the art and the colors are just. It's like he was doing color work like no one else was back then. And he was doing a lot of work. You think about how like a book can't come out on time nowadays where everybody has fucking computers and everything. These people were putting out, he was doing like 10 covers a month, like by hand, old school way.
I mean, prolific,
like,
right?
Crazy, dude. I mean, so, and then the more recent thing I'm really into now is Adam Strange. And that's where like some of the Silver Age DC stuff still holds.
Yeah, so, for the record, you were ahead of the curve. Because I saw you had that book well before the news. Yeah. There were a handful of us that were on that early. And I'm happy that you were one of them.
I've been trying to get this book. I actually wanted it in a higher grade. Everyone I've ever seen in a higher grade, raw was just stupid overpriced, and everything I've seen graded again was just stupid overpriced, like eBay prices or something like that. So Showcase 17. This is the first appearance of the man Adam Strange, and classic Gil Kane, who is another one of my favorite artists. But the Planet and the Pendulum, just one of my coolest, like one of my favorite fucking DC characters books.
That book presents so well for a 3.5. Oh my god!
And you're dealing with there's no chipping at all, and you're dealing with just a lot of spine issue here, but no detachment, no reinforcement.
With a black cover. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, dude.
That's a pain in the ass. That book's, I mean, good luck trying to find it in higher condition.
Well,
it's expensive, and now it's even, it's starting to get.
Right. And
I get it.
Yeah, it's tough. And like, you don't see many of them. People aren't selling that book.
No,
it's just
I've never seen them in the wild.
Yeah.
It's eBay or bust. And I haven't looked at them since after the news was confirmed, right? Like, I didn't even fucking look at it. I was like, well, there it goes.
I haven't either, but maybe I should, just to get a little excitement in my
you can feel better about your purchase.
And then literally just the other day I picked this one up, and this isn't a big book by any means, but this is just one of my favorite covers. So this is
Oh,
Mystery in Space 53. So this is
yeah.
a classic Gil Kane cover as well, with the big robot and Adam Strange. This is when he gets his new outfit, and also this is bigger for me.
Just
This
think
is
if that was
when
a modern comic, it would be worth the same amount as his first appearance. New outfit.
yeah, new outfit, right? Yeah, right. This one though, high page quality, off white pages. It's a 5.0, and this is the first. This is the beginning of all the Carmine Infantino artwork in Mystery in Space. So one of my favorite series, and I plan on making a run of this series. That's one of the
Damn.
things I'm trying to work on.
Strong.
Because I like all of them, man. There's a dude out there that people don't even know about. He's called Space Ranger. He's from Showcase, I think 22. Takes a backseat to Adam Strange all the time, but he's just such a fucking dope character, and he shows up all the time.
I hope he shows up on HBO.
Yeah,
Then everybody will know about him.
true.
People will be like,
So
dude,
so yeah,
I'm really a big Space Ranger fan.
I've
Yeah,
always
no,
been a Space. I've loved Space
I've
Ranger
loved.
since he's the first comic book I ever read.
Actually found it in my uncle's garage.
Yes, my mom threw them all away. I used to have that book, but my mom threw them all away.
They were with my Mickey Mantle baseball cards.
Yeah, right. Fuck, Jesus Christ.
Let me ask you about this one. I see one huge book over here. It's on the list. You gave me a list of some of the things that you might let me see, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I don't have one. Oh my, nice and close, please. Nice and close. Jesus Lord.
Off white pages 8.0. I got this book right before I got this book.
People don't get how fucking hard an 8.0 is in that book.
Yes.
Like I've seen gorgeous copies.
Yeah.
Got like in fucking verbal altercations with people selling them because they think they're going to be 8.0s, but they ain't. It's just a fucking nightmare with that specific copy. They're hard on it. It's a hard book just to begin with.
I think I agree. I think that there's a lot of scrutiny on the book. But I also
did you sub that? Or did you buy it slabbed?
No, I bought it slabbed.
I was gonna say, yeah, you got fucking King Kong balls if you subbed that one and got an 8.0.
No, I did not. I with some of these books, these bigger books like this, I will I always want to buy it slabbed. I want to know the grade I'm getting. Obviously, if I
talk to listeners about that who are thinking about getting into bigger books. In other words, you do that probably for a number of reasons that would seem obvious to me, but can you kind of explain what those reasons are?
Yeah. So for me, it's one of the biggest reasons, right? Well, so for me, the major reason is I like fucking high grade books. I love CGC slabs. I love seeing the high numbers. I love seeing good page quality. It's just how I collect books. That's just one of the main reasons.
Well, in other words, why do you prefer to buy these bigger books already slabbed as opposed to subbing them? That was kind of the inquiry I was making.
Right. So the bigger picture for that is it's more or less it's going to retain its market value, or I know I'm paying for what I'm getting. It's so
no
hard.
Risk of trimming.
No risk of any restoration or trimming.
And micro trimming, fuck if I know. I mean, you can like line the books up on top of one another, and like everybody's got an opinion. Like everybody's got an asshole. Some of them stink. Who fucking knows? I don't truly believe that CGC does a great job of telling whether or not things are micro trimmed, and I know they do a better job now than they did when they started. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
But what the fuck am I gonna? I don't have like a laser, ruler there, or like and a copy of the exact book to kind of like do it. Plus, a lot of color touch is hard. Like I can tell. I think about, I don't know, 95% of the time with just a regular old light, not even like a black light, but like I'm not perfect.
No,
I don't think anybody is.
I don't think anyone's perfect, and
so there's like certainly a less risk with that, and that's a kiss of death, right? If you or I or anyone buys a restored book, whether it's trimming, micro trimming,
Right.
like good luck trying to figure out if a book's been glued. The only way
Right.
I know how to tell if something's been glued is to put my tongue on it. Like I can taste it with my own book. That's pardon me, sir. Can you take that out of the bag? I'd like
Can I
to
lick that
just
spine?
to see if you see anything. I won't leave a spot, I swear.
Yeah. So I mean that's it's the resto is like super tough, man, you know, and I've definitely I've seen some books that got past CGC, definitely. I've seen some books that were put back together that were
When you say
sub.
that, you're talking about Frankensteining books together, right?
I'm not talking about taking a cover from one copy and the interiors from another, but I am talking about
Wraps?
wrapped, like total separation and I've seen some things get past CGC, but you know, once it's in a CGC slab, it doesn't fucking matter. You know,
It's
if it's
kind of
great,
liquid.
it is. It's, you know, it's a graded fucking 9.4 white pages. It's going to be a 9.4 white pages.
Yeah. Now,
Every time I
you
reslab that
like to
book,
buy books in person, right?
I preferred. I do
So that
always
you
look.
can buy the book and not the
Yeah,
grade
right.
for
Right.
this reason.
Right.
But when it comes to fucking selling books on eBay,
I mean, there's no better way. I mean, there's just
yeah,
really no better way. It's just so easy. You could sell the most mundane
they're
books,
liquid
and
in
yeah,
absolutely. They're
yeah,
liquid in the CGC case. There's far less of a
yeah,
chance of like phony business on the part of the buyer. You get
right,
no protection from PayPal or eBay,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like you at least have like a shot if they're slabbed.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and I think that's, you know, for selling on eBay, selling big books on eBay is probably the easiest, is the way to go. I mean, you sell them on a con floor, you're gonna lose because you're selling them to a seller. You know, like for someone like me who's not set up, if I'm selling it on a con floor, I'm not gonna make out. Um, and trying to sell it, I mean, there's some people who do it over IG, um, and they're pretty heavy hitters, but I bought some books from people over, you know, and it's not like I'm buying them over IG. It's that I build a relationship on Instagram, and then I get to know that person, and then we talk offline. We're texting, we're talking, and I'm like talking about these books and whatever, and that's how I love that kind of sale. But with eBay, you're just right. You know, like you don't even need to put a picture in there. You just say House of Secrets 92, 80, off white pages. Here's the price, buy it now or best offer, like, you know what I mean, or risk the auction, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's become pretty crazy what's going on eBay with that stuff. But for me, like you said, it's the resto and all that kind of stuff, but it's also just like I've bought in raw books and looked at the grade that was given, you know, with some Silver Age books specifically. This has happened to me, and I even received those books, and I'm like, yeah, this looks around that. This looks like around a 7.5, 8.0, and then it came back 6.0, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I know that you know that CGC is super subjective. Everything's subjective. I get that, but if I'm gonna put the money into a raw book that's 8.0 graded, I want it fucking slabbed, because if it comes back 6.0, I just lost money, and
you lost big money.
I lost big money, and that's
Right,
the
like
thing
you
for
didn't lose
me.
like $100. You lost like five hundred
No, right,
dollars, a
right, and I
thousand
mean,
dollars.
God forbid it came back restored. Then you're talking like
Oh,
a $2,000 book turns into a $300 book. So
oh,
that's just it's all those reasons. It's preservation. It's preservation of my money and my investments. It's just, you know, you just know what you're getting. It's super important in my opinion.
let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the charitable work that the Comic Book Fiend Club does? It's for me one of like the most admirable things about the organization, and if you can just kind of like talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely held back from this earlier, just because I knew we were probably going to talk to it more in depth. So one of my favorite things, and regrettably one of the things I'm not as invested or not as involved in with the Comic Book Fiend Club, is all the charity work that the members do, and everything you could imagine. You know, before I came on this podcast, I was talking to some of our members and just asking about I was like, hey, we got a couple charity drives going on right now. And all of a sudden there's like 10 DMs in my in my messenger, just like listing the charities that everyone's doing. I'm like, fuck, this is a lot. The cool thing, what it comes down to, is we have two big drives that we do mostly. And one of them is comics for our military, and the other one is comics for our future. So comics for our military.
So I want to talk first about the military, right?
Yeah. So we have
because everybody knows that's a huge segment of the comic book community.
Absolutely. If you look at
members, they've got to be what? 40% of the collectors, 60?
And a lot of our club is veterans and a few active military as well. And I'll tell you, I noticed this. You know, I collect a lot of things. I also collect in part, I collect precious metals. I love silver bars and stuff like that, poured silver. And I've noticed that in all collectors communities, veterans and military are a huge part of this collector lifestyle. And I've never really understood where those two things meet, but it's fucking awesome. So we have a ton of military vets, and so every year or so, they do this huge drive where they're collecting any book that anyone wants to send in. And last year, a few of the members actually went down to one of the halls and met up with a bunch of guys who were actually young kids, like 18 years old, just heading into the military, just being deployed for the first time. And they handed these kids stacks of comic books to take with them across seas, to just have something to remind them of home, or to read that Wolverine story, or whatever it is, just something to give them, you know, like something to do, or peace of mind, or comfort, whatever it may be. And it's so awesome to see people get so stoked over comic books like that, and then to share that with people who either don't have the means to do that. And I don't mean just financially. I mean, like, they may be in fucking overseas fighting a war, and they can't pick up the new issue of Doctor Doom. It has nothing to do about money. You know, it's they can't read Absolute Carnage that everyone's talking about, or the Tom King Batman run, because they've been overseas for the past 2 years of their lives and they just couldn't do it. So to see them come home and be met with a bunch of comic books, or to see them leaving and be gifted a bunch of comic books, is absolutely amazing. And I'll say this right now, and I'll say it a number of times, but if anyone has any interest anywhere that you are, United States, Canada, wherever it may be, just reach out to the club, come with Fiend Cub, on our IG. Somebody will hook you up with someone in your area who's running a drive. If you want to send books to us, whatever it may be, we appreciate all the support, and so do the vets, and so do the kids. So the second one there is Comics for a Future, and this one is is really something special. A lot of our members do these drives, and they do them a couple times a year all over the United States. We have one going right now. We have a toy drive. Actually, it's not comic book related. I mean, it is comic book related, but it's all toys, new, used, old, and it's one of our Midwest chapter members, Booty Meat's son. Again, just reach out to me or reach out to the Comic Book Fiend Club, and we'll put you in the right in with the right people to help out if you want to make a donation. And he's doing a toy drive for Christmas, so he can walk into one of the local hospitals out. I forget where it is, and he's going to walk into a local hospital with all these kids who are in hospital for Christmas, and just give out all these toys every toy that he can get. And they do this with comic books all the time. Specifically, they focus on children's hospitals because You know, that's where most of the cheer is needed. And that's where, you know, the escapism is utilized the best. Someone who's sitting in a bed for weeks on weeks and going through horrible, you know, regimens of chemotherapy or something like that. To see these guys walk into a hospital with long boxes filled with books and just handing them out to little kids, it's just something fucking special, man. So right now we have anywhere, I think we have right now, I counted 6 different drives going on. Most of them are for the kids, the Comics for Our Future. And we have Dollar Bin Bandit, is one of my East Coast brothers who heads up a lot. He's got one going right now. There's a few in the South that are doing it, and there's a few in the West. So, and like I said, there's the toy one in the Midwest. So no matter where you are, you know, reach out to someone. If you see this logo or you see Comic Book Fiend Club out there, just reach out, ask us, how can I help out, and get books in the hands of kids and vets, because that's what we're all about.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you bringing that up, dude. It's a large part of what a lot of our members work tirelessly on. And again, I don't do enough with it. Speaking as much about it right now makes me feel like, fuck, I need to do more about this. But
here's what's beautiful about it for me, right? More than anything else, is that here, this group, right, at like a time when, for whatever fucking reason, and I'll never understand it, okay? But for whatever reason, we have all of these like divisive little factions in the comic community that are fighting and bickering, and, you know, like you have a group that is doing anonymous acts of charity behind the scenes, members who, you know, aren't getting a pat on the back. You know, it's not like they're doing it for their fucking ego. They're just doing it because it's the right thing. And specifically what they're doing is putting comic books in the hands of members of the armed service and children.
Absolutely.
It doesn't get better than that for me.
It does not. No, you're right. And total truth, man. Like, they're not posting this shit on IG and stuff because they want the likes and the pat on the back. They're posting it because they want people to send them books. They want people, they don't. It would be posted anonymously if we could. Unfortunately, that's not how things work. So,
but see, the Fiend Club, like, nobody knows who the fucking president. I didn't know who the founders were. Nobody knows. It's just like a group of these guys, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to what I think, you know, we see too often within our community is like, I have made some sort of fucking speculative prediction, and if some other motherfucker champions the same idea, but he was second in time, he stole my spec, right? Or like some other sort of like, and you know, and then like that is juxtaposed against comic books for veterans and children. Come on. So please, again, as we approach the holiday season, you know, allow my vest-wearing fucking members of the Comic Book Fiend Club to allow mine and your cold, dead hearts to grow a couple extra sizes and get some books in the hands of children and veterans.
Absolutely. Please do.
Doesn't get better than that. As opposed to crying and belly aching because whatever the fuck, like, name the crybaby moan. There's so many. I don't like what these people do. I don't like, you know.
Yeah, I'll throw a challenge out there right now. I mean, so again, like, you know, you talk about the state of the community and stuff like that. We can go on about that for hours, and I'm sure we will later on. But you know, like I said, we have all different types of camps of thought, and, you know, there's plenty of people in the Comic Book Fiend Club that spec on books as well. You know, I mean, we all spec. Who
doesn't? The idea that, like, people are not speculators, whether or not you're a fucking retailer, some asshole who's just like, come the fuck on. You started speculating, like I said, the moment you started putting those books in bags and boards.
Hey, absolutely, right? I mean, and I mean, whether you're looking for, you know, to maintain a pristine book or whatever it is, like, you see that book has value.
For what reason? To die with a pretty book?
Well,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, clearly. You're exactly right. Right? Like
Yeah.
the moment you do it, you are ascribing value to it.
Right.
It's
Right.
something you love.
Right.
And I'm going to take care of it.
And personal value or actual, whether that translate into actual monetary value or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like everything we do with investment and money, whether it's comic books or fucking Bitcoin or Wall Street, it's all speculation. You're going to speculate, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. I was fucking stoked that I got a Showcase 17 before they announced all that fucking shit going on. I'm super stoked. There's books I'll never buy again. You know what I mean? Like, there's books that I would love to have in high grade in my collection, but I will never buy them.
Yeah, don't say that, because I said that,
Well,
and then I'm going to tell you what I did today, and you'll just be like, oh shit.
Oh, do you got some books to show off?
No, well,
okay, all right.
I mean, okay, I got one just because I inadvertently brought it up, but it was a book. I bought a book today that I said I'll never in a million years ever
spend that money on it. Yeah.
Like, why would I do that?
That ship sailed. Yeah.
Oh, it sailed. Let me
see
if I can. Oh, you're gonna. For the record, I bought it because it's a deal. It was a. Where did I hide it? You ready? I'll never buy that book. I did.
I was just gonna say that's the book I'll never buy again.
Right? Yeah. No, right. Well, you brought it up, and I legitimately bought one today. Because the price was right for the condition.
Right. And you know what, man? Like, if
that's how it happens too, right?
With a book like that, like, it's so easy to tell. I mean, it's relatively easy to tell. If there's any resto or any stuff like that, which there's not going to be on a fucking book like that. There's not going to be on a Hulk one. I mean, I'm not going to say there's not going to be, but nobody's doing that unless they're, whatever. It doesn't matter.
I mean,
those books are the good gambles, though, because those are the books that you want to buy raw at a good price, send in, and then all of a sudden it comes back a high, get it pressed and clean, send it in, you get that subbed, and you get that high value, and you turn around. I mean,
you want to hear the funniest part? I've never owned one until today. Ever.
Well, congratulations.
Like,
I mean, it's a fucking great book, dude.
From childhood on, I've been like, meh. It's always been like, there was just always something else that I wanted more. That was that price. There was always something that was more important. It was always just a little too expensive. It was always just like a little like, I can get it later. Even at a young age, I appreciated how common that book was.
Yeah,
I mean, like at a young age, I'm like, that's not that old.
Just go look at the census. There's plenty of them out there. So,
whoa, well, the other thing is with the census, the number is probably twice what the actual number is, because everybody it's like press, resub.
Yeah.
But even if you cut it in half, it's profound.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean? It's a profound number.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, people don't realize what a disservice they're doing to the community when they crack a book and don't
turn
the label back in and say, please take this off the census, because that book that you have now is has just been counted twice. So by that,
particularly when we talk about the older golden age books that you and I like, where there's 25, 50, maybe 100 copies known to exist, half of which are already on the census. And when you get into stuff that's really, really rare, it's like, why would you do that? I hope you don't do that. Don't do that, please.
I don't think anyone who's cracking a golden age book to be cleaned up, pressed, or whatever, or just to be resubbed
would be that indecent.
Would be that indecent, or
I would love to believe that. Yeah, I hope you're right. I pray you're right.
I would imagine. I'd also have to imagine that a lot of that kind of stuff is, cracking it from a PGX or nobody, or like a CBCS and turning it to a CGC.
Yeah, I was going to say no one knows how to crack a book out of a PGX slab. You basically need a nuclear bomb. Those things. Fucking murder a zombie with that thing. Jesus, it's like a cinder block.
Are you CGC? Is that what you do? CGC? That's it, or do you do
I've
CBCS?
never sent a book to CBCS.
Me neither.
I wasn't
me
collecting when they had their come up. You know what I mean? Like there was that little brief period of time. I wasn't. I'd taken like about a 4 or 5 year break, and you know, don't get me wrong. I would love for their competition's good in any market. I mean, you know, I'm a capitalist like anybody else, and but in this stage of the game, it's not the difference between Coke and Pepsi. It's like the difference between like
Google and
RC
Bing.
Cola. Yeah, like RC Cola and Coke. Like Bing has great features, and I'm just like, I mean, I'm sure it does, but like
nobody walks around and says Bing it, bro. They say Google it. You know,
right? Like
nobody
yeah.
walks around and says, "Yo, CBCS."
I remember. Yeah, I remember having this thought once when I was fucking. I was writing my weekend update, and I was talking about like the number of. I was talking about the number of slabbed copies. And I was like, should I use the word CGC? And then I realized, well, fuck, CBCS doesn't even have a census. Who fucking cares? PGX didn't even come into my mind, or Halo, or any of the other, like, nobody gives a fuck. Send your books to Australia.
There's a new one I saw now.
There's people in West Virginia that fucking use Halo. I was just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, that's all. That's crazy.
God bless them, but, like, good luck selling them. And,
I don't know.
Dude, I should target CBCS auctions. Like no reserve auctions because nobody's fucking bidding on them.
And then, especially this time of year, no one's spending money because it's about to be Christmas.
Ooh,
yeah, and
that's how I ended up with a Hulk 181.
Hey,
that's how that one happened. Jingle bells.
This is not the best time to sell, but it is certainly the best time to target some auctions.
Buying season.
You go in there and you snipe up some stuff right now, and even best offers. People are.
Oh my gosh!
Like, you know,
absolutely.
I really didn't want to go that low, but then they start thinking about everything they got coming down the pipeline, and fucking kids are out of school for a week, and we're going on vacation here, and I gotta buy fucking this, and it's like, all right, I'll take that offer.
Bang.
So
no question about it.
Right.
Yeah, like my wife wants a Chanel bag. There goes my fucking whatever. Happy wife, happy life.
Hey, absolutely, man. I'm all for that.
So, yeah, right. Now, you're a. I thought you were an Ohio guy. I was all excited about this, but
I'm not.
You're not, in fact, but you are an East Coaster, right?
Yeah. So I'm from New Jersey originally. I live the East Coast.
Not where you live now.
No, I actually live in southern Vermont. I live in the middle.
Is there a small show circuit in southern Vermont?
Not much. So I live really close to Massachusetts and really close to New Hampshire border. I'm right down there in the corner. And in New Hampshire, there's quite a bit of it's more, you know, it's more like swaps and stuff like that that I go to. You know, con is a very is a big word to use for some of these. But you know,
I was at one of those things today. Yeah, it was a convention, but it was like the old.
It's a convention. Yeah, and a lot of these are. There's one in particular that I go to. You know, that a ton of dealers go to from Mass and New Hampshire and Vermont, and it's every month. It's once a year. It's at a Sheridan. I'm sorry, once a month. And it's at a Sheridan, and you know, they're pretty much just posting up and they're swapping, and there's a lot of conversation about hot books and this book and that book, and you know, and that's where I find the best deals. It's mostly raw books. It's mostly you know, dudes that have been collecting, like they've got Silver Age books that they bought off the stand. Like it's those kind of dudes. Like it's not younger people like you and me that are getting into it and all up, you know, in the slab
guys, dude. They're my guys.
They teach me, and they teach me so much.
You know what they don't do? Fucking fight and cry and complain. They're excited to be there. They like to talk about what they love.
Yes.
They also sort of laugh at the fucking, you know, the crazies.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they're just solid people who are passionate about the hobby, and my favorite dealers.
It's
guys over 65.
Yeah,
What's
right.
funny is when they ask me like just some ridiculous shit, like how do you grade comics, or like some nonsense because they do too, which is
Yeah, I
sort of
mean, they're old
charming.
school,
And then I'll
right?
just be like, God, fuck it, what is happening?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
let's
mean,
talk.
if you're selling books in any large capacity, you have to be aware of the game. Like you got to be aware of what's going on in the speculation world. You have to be aware of what's going on with CGC, like with slabbing books and all that kind of stuff. Or else you're never gonna really, yeah, you're not gonna be like a big seller if you're not part of that. And these guys, they're sellers, but like they're not they're not putting Immortal Hulk 2s on their wall. They don't even
Right,
know that book exists, and they don't care that
right.
it exists. They want to talk to you about, look at my Tales of Suspense run. Let's look at that together. I've got them all, and here they all are in full backs with Mylars. They're gorgeous, and I've read every single one of them 15 times. You know what I mean? And those are the people you're going to gain knowledge from, and those are the people
Oh,
you're going to get the best deals from too. Like it's just,
they love passing it on, and
yeah,
if you
absolutely.
don't like listening to those stories, shame on you, right?
Yeah, or
I mean, they're just priceless.
pretend to get the better deal anyways. Fuck it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess that's true too. But a lot of them are just have priceless knowledge, man. Just
Mm-hmm.
priceless. And what's fun is when I talk to these guys, and for example, they're also following Rick's neat stuff on the CGC boards, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Really? Okay, my man.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I fucking hate CGC. But I buy books from Rick's neat stuff on the CGC board. And I'm just like, what?
yeah, that's
You don't
hilarious.
have any slabs? You've never slabbed a book. How did you find out about the CGC boards? Well, that's great.
It's a great place to buy books, that's for sure.
Amen.
Yeah, great.
What's your strategy when you go to small cons, other than really to just kind of like engage with the personalities there and sort of open up to them and do your best to learn from them and foster those relationships? I mean, is there a way
Yeah.
you kind of approach tables or books generally?
So I mean, so in if it's
Because
not
I'm
if
one of
it's
the
a
people like if I can look at every single fucking book. That's of course
Mhm.
what I want to do. I want to see everything.
I want to look, yeah. So it depends on what my mindset is. Like, there's a difference between when I walked into Baltimore than when I go to like a local, it's just 400 long boxes put out amongst 30 different dudes that are selling. There's just a little bit of a different thing. Some of the
Baltimore's a
small
lot smaller than I thought it was going to be, for the record. Like
uh
for the amount of money that traded hands and like I was
it's
just like,
small
oh,
in size, actual physical size, yes,
right.
but it's not small by any means in regard to the books that were around. That's for
No,
sure.
sir. No, sir, it was not.
No.
No,
Anytime you
sir,
see
it was.
multiple AF-15s and some,
Oh, that was just like, yeah,
I
of
saw
course.
a couple of a couple Batman ones. I think I saw like 2 or 3 Batman ones while I was there. So yeah, definitely some big books there, but and tons of Golden Age stuff,
Oh,
tons of pre-code horror stuff, which was amazing. Yeah, but when I walk into a con, I mean, if I usually I like to walk through the whole thing and kind of glance at wall books. I like to look out for vendors I know. If I see a vendor I know, I go right up to them automatically and I say, "What's good, dude?" Like remind them who I am briefly. Oh, I bought that one book off you this one time. You remember when I got that Tomb of Terror 16? Well, yeah, hook me up with a deal. I'm going to spend some more money here. But
right. I mean,
you
that's
know,
how that stuff goes, right? You
yeah,
spend a little bit, spend a
right.
little bit more, or spend a lot, and when the next time when you spend a little bit, you expect a lot. Like,
Yeah,
and
right.
people are
And
willing to do it. Of course
yeah,
they are, because they
and
get it too. Not all dealers, but the good
yeah,
ones appreciate that they want to do what you want to do, which is
right,
foster long-term relationships that are mutually beneficial,
right.
right?
And there's a couple of those, yeah, right. And there's a couple of those dudes that they know, like, I've been like, hey man, like, here's my fucking email, here's my cell phone number, here's my IG, like, here's the books I'm looking for, here's the quality I'm looking for. Hit me up, if you ever come across it. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
And they,
sort of shocked at big dealers who are kind of resentful about people that like flip books or whatever, because I think the ones that are the smartest are desperate to help their customers make money so that they come back and spend more money.
Yeah.
Right?
If I spend $500 with
that's
you
what
and
you're trying to do. When people buy shit from you, you're like, let me make money so you can come back and spend some more.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not like I sell. I still read comic books, right? I still have a weekly pull. So I'm not speculating on books to a point where I'm like trying to figure out what the next big book is going to be. But if I so happen to have that book in my pull and I realize that it's selling for fucking $50 on eBay, I'm going to probably post it on IG and say, yeah, sell it to someone for $25 because I paid 5 and it's going to be a better price than you're going to get. And it's all about what I made out of it. I don't care if you turn around and slap it up, get a 9.8 and sell it for $300. I really don't give a fuck. Like, I made mine and I use that money to spend it towards something else, usually comic books. My ultimate goal recently, and it's been working pretty well for about a year for me, is to not have to pay for my weekly comic book pull and to make some money to pick up some big books. As long as I'm not pulling money out of my paycheck to do it.
Are you a dollar bin diver?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So that's the other thing. Like, so back to the small con thing. I walk around, I look at all the wall books, and then I say, I know all those books are going to be here by the end of the day. So I'm just going to start digging through bins, and I'm going to look for what I look for. I look for. Now a couple of the guys I love Bernie Wrightson, so I look for anything with that's covered with him. I love Darwin Cook. I look for anything that's Darwin Cook. Now, a couple of my closest brothers in the club, they're all Mignola fans, huge Mignola fans, and so I'm always looking for those books. Even if I don't want it, I'll grab it and be like, oh, dollar bin book Mignola. I know who I'm sending this to. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I love digging through dollar bins, and you find those gems, man. I found the last like dollar bin find I got was like a really high, a high grade copy of a Moon Knight 1. It's not a crazy book, but I got it for $1.
Great
I got it for
$1.
I love that book, yeah, and I love it, and it was
so good at dollar bins, that it just like, I mean, I'm astonished at the shit that they pull up. Like, they'll just be like, it'll be like $200 book, $100 book, $200. I'm just like, what in the fuck did you just do?
Dude,
it pays to dig dollar books. It pays to get down on the floor and look under tables.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
pays
that.
The bill.
That's fun, man.
Like, absolutely. I don't understand collectors who don't love to dig through boxes. It's fucking therapeutic.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It is. Don't get me wrong. When I went to Baltimore, like, I wasn't digging through bins because I know those bins have been picked through. I know every dealer there, has looked through those bins and took every single book that could possibly be worth more than $1 out of there. And really, just that wasn't my focus. My focus was I was looking for some bigger books, and I was there with a bunch of friends. There was almost like 10 of us there from the Fiend Club, and we just had a great time. My focus was having a really good time. It wasn't dollar bins. But when I go to a new comic book shop, when I go to a smaller con, when I see those, like, when you see those, the tops of the bins, and they're like, you can see like the yellow coloring in the boards, you're like, okay, nobody's looked through these for a while. Let's go pick through it and see how many whatever I can find. But I love that part of it. It's fun, man. It's exciting when you find like something you've never seen before. But like you said, to the dollar bin, like having those dudes that just know, that's another part of the club, is the knowledge in the club that I've gained from some of the other members.
Right,
dude. There's
do you have somebody who's a Matt Baker romance fucking savant?
We don't really.
That's bullshit. That's the guy I want. What the fuck? I'm heartbroken.
Well, that's gonna be me. That's gonna be me and you. In my life. No, we just need to start talking about it and figure it out. We need to drive the market. We need to drive the market. We got to drive the market. The
market's driven. I just want to figure out the damn covers are. It's terrible. Where do you start looking? Oh my
No, it's hard.
God. But my point is like, there's always cash to be made in like
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
sort of niche areas. Like, for example, Westerns. Gary was talking about him in the live chat.
Yeah,
I know a handful of like, that everybody knows, right?
yeah,
But there are, it pays to be the guy who can look through Westerns and be like, bing, 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 bing. Those are
yeah.
books that are, $100 a piece. I'll take them for $20 all day long.
And
Uh,
and another big market is any like the animal, like the Toons books, any of the older Golden
Dude,
Age Toons books.
the funny animal
I
shit. I know
fuck.
nothing about it.
I know.
It's like my
Yeah,
kryptonite. I
but
hate it. I
people.
know like 3 covers, and you're exactly right. There's a whole separate like community of people that. Oh, this reminds me. One of the other questions that's burning on everybody's mind. What's with the air horn, or what's it called? Isn't there a book?
Air Pirates.
Air Pirates. What's with Air Pirates? What is Air Pirates?
Uh,
Tell
so
me
so
more.
so I'll tell you. So
Is
this
it a
goes
funny
back to
animal book or no?
no. It's a total. So I'll. This goes back to one of the dudes in the West Coast. This dude who I talk to a lot. He's this guy Rob. His name's Comics on the Edge.
So it
He
literally is Air Pirates. Like,
yeah, Air Pirates. Yeah.
sounds good so far. I liked Ice Pirates
So
as a kid.
so
Tell me.
so these dudes, this dude has so much fucking knowledge about underground books, and like he knows like the craziest second printings, price variants. Like
I was
he
just
knows.
telling my
He's
friend
just one of
Stevie
those
about
dudes.
there's a couple books that I think are supremely undervalued, but I
Yeah,
don't know how to like make a huge move on them
yeah,
uh, because it's an indie book, and I'm like, was the fucking barn supposed to be orange or yellow? I don't know. You know what I mean?
yeah.
When
So
it comes to
I
indie comics, that's a whole different,
yeah, it's crazy. But the underground, but and it goes beyond because Air Pirates is, you know,
So it's an
in it.
underground
It's an old underground indie comic. It's essentially
from
a
like the 60s
um
or 70s or
I don't know the year off the top of my head because
nevertheless.
I don't, yeah, right, but I believe it's in the 70s, like early 70s, late 60s at least. But it's a parody book is what it is,
Okay.
right? So you have some of some big comic book heavy hitters at the time, and they are no longer working for the big two or whatever their hold up is with Disney. They have all these, they're the typical, 60s comic book writer who has a grudge against the world, right? They hate everybody, that kind of thing. And
We have a lot of those personalities
we have a lot of those
in
personalities
the
in comic
community.
books.
Yeah.
And so they did a parody. It's a cover swipe of a classic Walt Disney cover, and I don't know enough about it to do it justice, but um, basically it's a depiction on the cover of Mickey Mouse in a as an air pirate, in a fucking in a like a World War II plane with the
Yeah.
gunner thing attachment, and there's a big old package strapped to the back of it, and it's insinuated that it's drugs. So he's running drugs in a plane. So I think there's a little bit of a insight. It's a big book for a lot of the West Coast part of the club, and I think
What
there's a little bit of what's that.
what's like a copy run? What's it cost? Couple $100.
So couple you could get raw copies, $150.
Okay.
I saw a 9.6 go on Comic Link for like 500, so it's really not crazy.
Huh.
But there's a
Well, the
few
9.8 sells for like 5,000 because you know how
yeah
that goes.
yeah there's a few 9.8s on the census, I believe. But it's just this parody book, and inside it really is. It's
And
just
apparently, a handful of guys on the West Coast groups latched on to it, and they love it.
Yeah, it's just become
This was
like
a much less anticlimactic. This was a really anticlimactic story. I was
no.
hoping for
I mean, I
like
think
everybody has to own a copy or we burn out your
no. So it's we just as like we have a good time, right? So
yeah.
quote unquote, this is their grail, right? So we fuck around with grails in the club, and the word grail is by no means meant to be taken seriously.
We use it
Um,
the same way that Key Collector uses the term key. Like it's a key for
uh,
somebody.
yeah, first appearance of his mustache, yeah, whatever it may be.
Thanks,
But
my buddy.
so Air
I also
Pirates
have a friend
definitely
who collects
is.
Viking comics. Trust me.
It's yeah, right.
He calls the
It's a
Grail
book. It's a book that definitely
I
holds
would
some
call it.
fucking yeah. It's a book that holds some weight. Um, it's got like a lot of history to it. Like they were sued by Walt Disney for putting this book out. They were not allowed to continue. They had to pull shelves off. Like
Yeah, I
there's a
like it
whole bunch
already.
of stuff into it. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. It's great.
I like
It's
I like
it's
fucking addiction covers, dude. I like the what's the Golden Age heroin cover? It's just like fucking graphic, alarming. Oh my god! And the
yeah,
two Green Lantern covers, the two ASM or three
yeah,
ASM books that couldn't get the Comic Code of Authority because they were trying to tell this like story in a way that they thought was necessary at the
yeah,
time. You know, because they wanted to try to help the war on drugs or whatever the fuck they call it. You know what I mean? They were trying to help people with addiction generally. So yeah, I mean, I like that stuff. I met a guy today that collects golf covers, and I was like, and he's like, no, I like covers that depict golf. I was like, oh,
dude.
I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. He's like,
There's something for everybody, dude. Dude,
no,
there's
I
a
don't think
member
I
in the
do,
East
but
Coast.
I'm fucking excited that you like that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a member in the East Coast, dude, and she just posted a picture. She collects all covers where there's like a woman uh stabbing their significant other in the cover. And like I wouldn't even like it's fucking
Hilarious.
great. It's hilarious. And like I
Oh,
didn't even know that's like something you collect, but here it is in this picture, like fucking 40 books, spread out, and they're all like
that's
some chick with a knife in her hand, where they're like hugging or whatever. And it's everything from like Green Lantern to indie books to fucking Marvel books. Like it's all over the spectrum. It's great. You know what I mean? Like,
been lamenting my 40th birthday recently, and my boss reminded me of that movie, like This Is 40, which
yeah,
apparently
yeah.
I haven't paid that much attention to. I was probably fucking high when I watched it or something. You know, who fucking knows? I don't even know how old it was, right? But anyway, the point is, no recollection. He's like, yeah, that scene where in the beginning it's like, do you ever fantasize about killing your husband? And the other woman's like, yeah, I mean, doesn't everyone? I was like, what the fuck, dude? He's like, yeah, so, I mean, happy birthday, George. And I'm just like, Jesus, man. Why
I mean,
nobody
hey,
fantasizing about killing me? What the fuck?
hey, if you've been married long enough and you have kids, you've thought some thoughts. Anyways, yeah, man. I mean,
There's no crime in that. I promise.
no. Oh, I know.
Yeah, I just hope this young lady keeps it in the pictorials. If she chops up her fucking husband, for the record, like that'll be sad, but it'll also make for an incredible story.
Well, I think
woman who collects 400.
Yeah, 400, and then stabs husband brutally.
That would be a better story than like Clark Kent reveals secret identity. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that shit will spell the end of modern comics like the death of Superman did.
Jesus. No, I mean, there's something out there for everybody, right? And that's what's so cool about what we do.
The Comic Teen Club. All jokes aside, and I do a lot of joking. So,
no, so do we.
And report me for my inappropriateness, but
your monetary.
Yeah, I'll lose my whatchamacallit, the monetization for our 4 viewers.
Yeah.
But what I love about the Comic Book Fiend Club, and what I love about comics is that there's a home for everybody.
Absolutely.
If you like golf covers, if you like covers of women who are stabbing their husbands. Like electrocution covers or strangulation covers. There's a lot of murderous intent in the comic book community.
There is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like girls with big backsides. There's a lot of that too. I was showing, I was showing that off today. I was like, look, big booty Gwen. Yeah, people loved it. Whatever it may be, foreign comics, golden age. You like the X-Men, there's a home for you. You like guys in tights, we got a home for you. If you like whatever, you name it, there's all the room under the big top, man.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we are we're, like I said, we're all inclusive, and we're here. It's more about the the family and the just excitement about it than anything else. Anybody in our club is somebody that we want to be, they're representatives, and there's somebody who we are okay with representing not only our club or ourselves, but in our opinion, what we represent for the comic book community, as well.
Your values and principles.
Yeah, our values and principles are huge. Our mission statement, we don't have a mission statement, but we're no drama. We're no drama, and we're just here for the comic books. Obviously, you can't put 120 people in the same area and there not going to be any drama, but there's no overwhelming drama. We always have each other's backs. And like you said, you like to joke around. We like to fuck around too. We say it right off the bat. You got to have thick skin to fuck with us, because we go hard. Like, we're in a bunch of chats, and we just are constantly fucking with people, like each other. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's like how I used to fuck with my big brother, like we would just fuck around with each other, call each other names, slap box, whatever we did. That was just family, you know what I mean? And we even get into fights, and then you make up and you get over it, and that's it. It's what it is. But ultimately, we're all here for the same reason, And I think that's more than just a club. I think that's. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a brotherhood. A brotherhood. No, it's a beautiful organization. Yeah. I am so happy that you joined us this evening. Before we go, if you would please just remind our listeners of the two major charitable drives that the Comic Book Fiend Club is undertaking right now. And how they can get involved. One last push.
Yeah, so right now, Comics for Our Future. Get comic books in the hands of kids who need it, emotionally, physically, whatever it is. Comics for Our Future. We are doing a bunch of drives for that right now, leading into Christmas and beyond. If you have any questions, if you want to get books to us, if you want to know who's doing it locally where you are, just message us at the Comic Book Fiend Club on IG. You can message me on IG. My name is right at the bottom there. I got this, 3 S's, very simple. Hit me up, let me know, say, hey, who do I talk to about doing this? I'll put you in contact with the right person. And then Comics for Our Military is again another thing that we do all year round. We're constantly taking donations, and it's to put books in the hands of those men and women that are serving or have served in the military, in the armed forces. And beyond that, we're always open to suggestions. If you know someone that should be getting charitable donations or should be on our radar, let us know. Talk to us. Reach out to a member. We're always here. We love to talk to people. We love to do new things. So George, thanks, man. I really appreciate what you did for bringing us on today and sharing some love, man. I really appreciate it.
You're a good man. To our regular listeners and our new listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll be back at our regular scheduled time Tuesday around 9:15, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there's always new content on comicbookspeculation.com. If you are not reading the weekend update, I would encourage you to check it out. if for no other reason than to harass me in the comment sections. Thank
I gotta
you.
start doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Peace, man.
Bye, guys.
Take it easy.